marks the bicentenary of the British parliamentary abolition of the transatlantic slave trade. It was the abolition in 1807 of slavery in Britain that sparked the reawakening that the trade in human beings was inhuman and led to the stoppage of the trade. Various organizations in the diaspora and their counterparts on the African continent have been doing a lot of sensitization of Africans, government and international community on the need for new paradigms and global justice for the victims of slavery. One such organization is the Pan-Afrikan Reparations Coalition in Europe, which took part in the just-ended Global Pan-African Reparations and Repatriation Conference here in Ghana. Now, Esther Stanford is the co-vice chairperson of the organization, and she is here in the studio this evening to talk to us about reparation and repatriation. Esther, welcome to Ghana and welcome to the evening news.
Thank you.
Right now, if your organization is talking about reparation in the context in which your organization is seeking on behalf of victims, tell us exactly what are you looking for?
Well, actually, we are saying, as the founder of the country of Ghana said back then, President Nkrumah, we must have every inch of our lands, every one of our mines and industries. We are not asking for something. Reparation is something that we must do. Reparation essentially means to repair the damage. And I think that we haven't even begun to fully assess the damage that we've gone through as a result of chattel enslavement, colonialism, and now contemporary enslavement, which is neo-colonialism.
Now, are you talking about financial reparation, or exactly what you want the international community to do?
Well, financial compensation is an aspect of reparation. It will cost to be able to develop programs, social infrastructure programs. We're talking about recovery of lands. We're talking about recovery of lost cultures. We're talking about, you know, free healthcare. We're talking about social security. We're talking about an end to the racist immigration policies that are being developed by the West. When Europeans, when they came to Africa, they didn't have any visas. So there's a whole range of measures that we must effect in order to restore ourselves as a glorious African peoples that, you know, now are worldwide. So reparation fundamentally starts with repairing our minds.
Repairing our minds, exactly. But after that, I mean, what exactly do you think the international community would have to do?
Well, the international community would need to stop appropriating our lands, stop taking out our resources, in particular here in Ghana, and actually look at a reforming of the international world financial economic system as well. This whole notion of debt, our countries don't owe any debt. In fact, they owe us. So we're actually talking about global transformation that will actually bring the African back up to our rightful place as the mothers and fathers of humanity and civilization.
Of course, what you're saying is laudable, but of course it involves a lot of resources. So who do you expect to foot the bill?
Well, those people, those nations, those countries, those corporations that come out of Europe and also America will, if you like, foot the bill for financial compensation. But let's be very clear. We're not expecting the very people who've been responsible for the problem to be able to heal us, to be able to restore us. That is something that what we must do for ourselves. But until we build our power base, we will be powerless to effect any financial compensation measures that may or may not be awarded. And furthermore, we also argue as part of the Pan-Afrikan Reparations Coalition that there is no existing court in the world that can adjudicate our reparations claim. We are building international solidarity in terms of a special court, in the same way that you had with the Nuremberg tribunals. We wouldn't have expected Nazi Germany to prosecute Nazi criminals, war criminals, and in effect, that's what we have today in terms of a modern day parallel.
Now, you realize that you agree with me that slavery did not take place in only one country. So with what you're talking about, who or what body are you expecting to be in charge of these compensations?
Well, actually, what we have just done here in this conference in Ghana, we've been bringing together representatives from reparations movements from around the world. And each people, if you like, each African reparations movement or claim is different. But what we are doing is developing a global framework, an infrastructure to be able to harmonize our actions, to be able to also seek mutual support so that we will affect that power base, because reparations is about repairing the harm.
Right. Esther, finally, before you go, now, what role do you think African government would have to play in this reparation effort?
Well, actually, African governments also require reparations, but I would say that the role would be to join with us in actually calling for and building the African Union into a truly Pan-African Union, because at the moment we've got countries that have been set up by the European colonial powers, and this is the source of many of the contemporary conflicts that we're experiencing in Africa today. Africa as a continent needs reparation, and that starts with redrawing those boundaries, those artificial boundaries that separate us, nation group from nation group, and actually restoring ourselves.
Right, and Esther, I'm sure Nkrumah would be happy in his grave that at least someone is getting up and getting Africa to take its rightful place in the world politics. Thanks so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best in your effort.
Thank you.
That was Esther.